know that God is the source of truth. Then I don't have to try to figure anything out. I just go to the Bible and understand, what does God say about this? What does God say about that? Okay, might not always be popular, but this is what is true. And so now this becomes the guidebook for my life. And Jesus was praying for his disciples in John 17:17, just before he went to the cross. And Jesus said in his prayer, Father, sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. We need to be sanctified by God's truth. We need to understand what his truth is so that we can live our lives accordingly, instead of vacillating and wandering in our world and being caught up by all the cultural opinions and all the chaos that's so prevalent in our world today. So it's absolutely critical that we understand the source and the standard of truth is God and his word. But then the other aspect that's important is terminology. What do words mean? Words are important. Not only do we have to understand the source of all truth, we have to also understand the terminology. And without some agreement on what words mean, we can't have understanding about anything, especially what is true. So, for example, if I were to make a true statement and I were to say, it's sunny outside today, that assumes that you accept the universal English definition of sunny. If I say it's sunny outside, generally, most people understand sunny means the sun is shining, and that if you go outside during the day, you're liable to see your shadow, and you also are liable to feel the warmth of the sun rays on your skin, because people have a common language. So when you say it's sunny outside, people go, yes, it's sunny outside. But what were to happen if enough people get together and say, no, sunny doesn't only mean those things. Sunny can also mean cloudy and foggy. And so the definition changes. And now people are going around, they go outside and they're like confused. They're like, I don't know whether I'm supposed to say it's sunny or cloudy today because I don't know what the right terminology is. I don't know if I should say it's foggy. It feels sunny, but a lot of people are telling me it's really foggy today. So maybe I should say foggy because I don't want to offend anybody. And dare you say to somebody, no, I'm sorry, it's sunny today. I don't care what you say, it's not cloudy or foggy. They're going to call you a cloudophobe and a fogophobe. And they're going to say to you, you're a weather bigot. You're a weather bigot. And you're going to be like, no, you're going to be caught off guard. You're going to be like, no, seriously, I think clouds are fine. I respect fog. It's just not a cloudy and a foggy day. It's a sunny day. People are going to look at you. Listen, I get emails from people time to time who say the same thing. I got an email from a guy a little while ago, and he says, Gary, I'm raising 4 girls with my wife. Let me tell you why we come to Cornerstone. Because we're coming to hear the truth because we want to be reminded that we're not going crazy. You know? Isn't that true? Because you can go out in the world and think you're crazy. People are like, it's foggy today. No, it's sunny. No. Don't you ever use that word around me. It's like, how's that offensive? Because you need to be more tolerant of fog and clouds. I'm fine with the fog and the clouds, okay? They can coexist, all right, it's fine. But listen, don't tell me what I know. It's sunny outside. Have any of you seen Matt Walsh did this documentary on What is a Woman? Now, I haven't watched the whole thing. I've seen bits and clips of it. There's a little spicy language in some of it as he interviews people. They're just being themselves. But it exposes the insanity of how, kind of the woke progressive, whatever that means these days, people who can't even define what a woman is. And that if you dare to say, well, a woman generally XX chromosomes, and, women, by the way, are the only one of the 2 genders who can actually give birth, like that's offensive to people now. This is craziness. I don't know how many of you caught recently before a Senate committee, Senator Josh Hawley, who was here actually when we had the Pray Vote Stand Summit. He is a brother in the Lord. But Senator Hawley was interviewing this professor. Her name is Kyra Bridges. She's a professor at UC Berkeley. How many of you saw that? Okay, for those of you who didn't, I'm going to show you a clip, okay? Because this is rich. This is rich. But it just illustrates like the confusion on words and terminology and who can have babies and all this. So take a look at the screen.
Professor Bridges, you said several times, you've used a phrase, I want to make sure I understand what you mean by it. You've referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Would that be women?
Many women, cis women, have the capacity for pregnancy. Many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy. There are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy, as well as non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy.
So this isn't really a women's rights issue.
We can recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive, Senator Hawley.
Oh, so your view is that the core of this right then is about what?
So I want to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic, and it opens up trans people to violence by not recognizing that.
Wow, you're saying that I'm opening up people to violence by asking whether or not women are the folks who can have pregnancies?
So I want to note that 1 out of 5 transgender persons have attempted suicide. So I think it's important.
Because of my line of questioning? So we can't talk about it?
Because denying that trans people exist and pretending not to know that they exist.
I'm denying that trans people exist by asking you if you're talking about women having pregnancies?
Do you believe that men can get pregnant?
No, I don't think women can get
So
pregnant.
you are denying that trans people exist?
And that leads to violence? Is this how you run your classroom? Are students allowed to question you?
Absolutely.
Or are they also treated like this, where
No,
they're told that they're
question.
opening up people to violence?
We have a good time in my class. You should join.
I bet.
You might learn a lot.
Wow, I would learn a lot. I've learned a lot just in this exchange.
Absolutely.
Extraordinary.
Yep.
It's just what is happening. I'll tell you what's happening. Now, we should laugh. We're not laughing at her, we're laughing at this dialogue of insanity, and we should laugh because it helps us to realize we're not going crazy, right? We're not going crazy. Let me tell you why this is happening. If I don't like the standard of truth, I'm going to change the terminology of truth. This is what is happening. That's why standard and terminology are very important. If I don't like the standard of truth, I'll change the terminology to fit my narrative, my lifestyle, my choice, my agenda. And so what we're up against now is a culture that is not only denying the standard of truth, but is muddying all the terminology so that it creates confusion and people in our world aren't even sure what is true anymore. This is why we need to, come to church and center our hearts and minds on the Lord and His Word to understand what really is true and what really is false, what really is right from what really is wrong in our world, because we hold the handbook of life and we should know what is true in today's age. We should. And it's doubly hard, you see, because we want to minister to people who disagree with us, even though they might call us bigots and haters and all that stuff. We want to try to engage people like that professor. I would. I want to try to win them over, but it's so difficult when you're not even speaking words that mean the same thing anymore. Paul would write in Colossians 2:8-10, "Beware lest anyone cheat you through philosophy and empty deceit, according to the tradition of men, according to the basic principles of the world, and not according to Christ. For in Him dwells all the fullness of the Godhead bodily, and you are complete in Him, who is the head of all principality and power." Let me read it to you in the NIV. It says it this way: "See to it that no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy, which depends on human tradition and the basic principles of this world rather than on Christ." See, that's what the culture wants you to embrace. The culture's mission is be conformed to us. That's what the world and the culture is trying to say to all of us. Just be conformed to us, be conformed to the principles, be conformed to the ideals, be conformed to the academia, be conformed to everything that we say is right and wrong, true and false. Whereas the Bible says we need to be transformed, not conformed to the world. We need to be transformed by the person and power of Jesus Christ, which is our mission. Our mission is to go into the same world that wants to try to conform us into its image and present the good news of Jesus that they might be transformed into His image. And doing that in this day and age is not easy. But friends, this is why I want to encourage you. Because Jesus says if you know the truth will set you free. Now, he says that in a very specific way. And the last few minutes I have left, I want to address quick points about truth, because it's critical that we, of all people, the Church of Jesus Christ, should know what truth really is, so that we can hold the real truth out and hopefully help people find that kind of freedom that Jesus spoke about there, being set free by the truth. You see, Jesus, right before he was crucified, he stands before Pontius Pilate in John 18, verses 37 and 38. And Jesus said to Pilate, "For this reason I was born, and for this cause I came into the world, to testify to the truth." And then he says, "Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." And Pilate looked Jesus in the eyes and he asked the question that people are still asking today: what is truth? What is truth? I'll give you 5 quick things about what truth is from a biblical perspective. Here's the first one. Truth is objective. Truth is objective. Truth can never be subjective. I know it's very popular today to hear people say, well, it's my truth versus your truth. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as my truth versus your truth. You can say it's my opinion, you can say it's my perspective, but truth is not determined by you or me. Truth can exist only if there is an objective standard by which to measure it. Okay, now we believe that the ultimate objective standard is God and the Bible. But even on a practical day-to-day basis, you try that little my truth, your truth thing out and see how it works. Let's say you're going 75 miles an hour down Route 7 in a 55-mile-an-hour zone. And a deputy pulls you over, you roll down the window, the deputy says, "Do you know how fast you were driving?" "Yes, officer, I know how fast I was driving." "How fast were you driving?" 75. "That's right, you were. That's what my radar picked up. You're driving 75 and a 55. I'm going to have to write you up a ticket." And you say, "Well, that's your truth. My truth is that 75 is completely legal." Okay, it ain't going to work. Try it out. It ain't going to work. Go to your bank. You have $6.19 in your bank account. Try to withdraw $10,000. "Well, you don't have $10,000 in your account." "Well, that's your truth." My truth is I do. There are certain realities here. We just have to wake up to reality here. Number 2, truth is universal. If it's true for me, it's true for thee. It should be. What is true for one person should be true for all. If it's really true, because truth is not selective to one group of people, one time that they lived, one particular culture. Truth is true across all nations, all cultures, and all time. It's universal. Let me give you an example from even just Christian so-called doctrine. There is a doctrine, I think it's a false doctrine, that has been going around for many years. It's called the prosperity gospel. It basically teaches, and some people torture different verses of the Bible to basically try to make it say that if you're a Christian, God desires to make you wealthy. And so you should expect to be wealthy, you should drive an expensive sports car, you should live in a mansion, because that's really a child of God. Now, does God certainly bless people? Of course He does. I mean, everything that we have is from the hand of God, and if He's blessed you well, then you should be generous with that. It's stewardship, no matter if you have a little or you have a lot. But to go around saying that everybody as a Christian should be wealthy, here's how you can test if that is a true doctrine or a false doctrine. It should be universal. You should be able to preach that across all people, all cultures, all time. I've been to some places in the world. I've preached in churches and I've shared in homes where people live with tin walls and dirt floors. If I were to go into that home and say, "Listen, by the way, if you're a believer, you should be wealthy, driving a fancy sports car, and you should be living in a mansion. What are you doing in a tin shack with dirt floors?" I mean, that's just ridiculous, because it's not true. But I can preach John 3:16 anywhere, anytime, to any people, because that's a true doctrine, that all are sinners, we need to be saved, Jesus died on a cross. I can preach that in a shack with tin walls and dirt floor and a Manhattan studio apartment. It doesn't matter, because that truth transcends all people, all times, all cultures, because real truth is universal. Number 3, truth is absolute. A lot of people believe the truth is relative. I just quoted some of those surveys. Some people believe that truth is just, dependent on the circumstance, and it's relative to, everybody's different situation. And so when people go around saying to you There's no such thing as absolute truth. Here's the question you need to ask them. Just turn it on its head and ask them this question. Then they say, there's no such thing as absolute truth. Ask them, is that an absolute statement? And they say yes, then you can say, well, then it implies the existence of absolutes, doesn't it? Because you want me to believe a statement you just said is absolute. Okay, the truth is that truth is absolute. And in that same Barna research survey that I quoted earlier, they asked people if they believe that there are moral absolutes that are unchanging, or if moral truth is relative to the circumstances. Listen to this. Sadly, by a 3-to-1 margin, 64% versus 22%, adults said truth is always relative to the person and their situation. The perspective was even more lopsided among teenagers. 83% of teens said moral truth depends on the circumstances, and only 6% said moral truth is absolute. And here's what's even more alarming. Are you ready for this? In that survey, less than 1 out of 3 born-again Christians adopt the notion of absolute moral truth. Christians. Less than 1 out of 3 believe in the notion of absolute truth. The Bible says in Psalm 119, verse 89, "Forever, O Lord, your word is settled in heaven." It's absolute. We either live according to it or not, but we can't think that truth changes based on the person or the situation. It's not relative, it's absolute. Number 4, I got 2 more here. Number 4, truth is eternal. And that's because God is eternal. And God is the author of truth. In Psalm 119, 160, it says, "The entirety of your word is truth, and every one of your righteous judgments endures forever." And in Isaiah 40, verse 8, it says, "The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God stands forever." And lastly, number 5, truth is freeing. And this gets us back to where we started in our study, because I want you to look again at verses 31 to 36. In John 8:31, it says, "Then Jesus said to those Jews who believed him, 'If you abide in my word, you are my disciples indeed, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.' And they answered him, 'We are Abraham's descendants and have never been in bondage to anyone.'" Wait a minute, that's ironic. They don't even know their own history. They were slaves in Egypt for 400 years. What are you talking about? Of course you've been in bondage. But the bondage Jesus is talking about is even more severe than that. So they go on and they say, "How can you say you will be made free?" Jesus answered them, "Most assuredly I say to you, whoever commits sin is a slave of sin. And a slave does not abide in a house forever, but a son abides forever. Therefore, if the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed." So he was talking about a greater slavery than the horrific human bondage that humanity can do to humanity. That is terrible. But what's even worse is being in slavery to sin and being separated from God. And so Jesus says here, if you really want to be free, you have to know the truth. The kind of freedom he was speaking about is the freedom from sin and death through a relationship with him. Because once we come into relationship with him, then our souls are set free. Free from sin, we are forgiven. We go to heaven when we die because we have a relationship with Jesus, and he whom the Son sets free is free indeed. We should no longer be slaves to sin, but we should be set free by the Son and thereby join the family so that we can claim that inheritance in Jesus, and thus, not that we earn it or deserve it, but the free gift of salvation that is found in him and him alone. That's why truth.
'Cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that